Hey, my name is Rihanna Banks. Welcome to Lincoln Home. This right here is Mr. Lincoln's neighborhood. This home right here to my right, this actually is the home that he stayed in for 17 years before he went going off to the White House. So, welcome to Lincoln Home. So this right here, this is the former parlor. This is where Mr. and Mrs. Lincoln had their parties. So actually between 200 and 300 people came to their parties. Yes. They would drop their business cards off in that platter and make their way over to Mr. and Mrs. Lincoln. Now, when Mr. and Mrs. Lincoln weren't having their parties, they would close these double doors, and that back parlor would be his office area, and that's after they added on to the home. Because as I told you guys before, the home was not this big when they first purchased it. That back parlor was actually the bedroom. That was where 3 of the 4 Lincoln boys were born, and it's also where Eddie died of tuberculosis. And in this front parlor, this is where they held Eddie's funeral, and right where that marble top table is where they lay his coffin. So you can imagine some different emotions in this part of the home. On May 19th, 1860, about 27 Republican delegates came to ask Mr. Lincoln that one question, and that was to run for president. He said, "I'll get back to you." And 4 days later, he wrote back accepting it. Now, if you guys look down on the ground, there's one on that side and there's one on this side. You'll see some drawings of the rooms. Well, when Mr. Lincoln was in office, some people from the newspaper company came by to draw these pictures because the people were wondering, well, what does our president's home look like? How is he living in Springfield? And what does it look like on the inside? So they came by and drew these pictures. Now, Willie and Tad, they were not allowed in this part of the home. This is the formal part of the home. This is where they had their parties, and this is where all of their guests would be. So they didn't want them to break anything on the whatnot shelf or to dirty up this nice black horsehair furniture, so they weren't allowed. Now, I didn't say that Willie and Tad didn't somehow make their way into this part of the home, because those boys, they were a handful. So he was too tall to fit in these chairs. What he would do is he would lay out on the ground, read a book out loud to the family, play with their dog Fido, or play with any cats that he brought home. Mrs. Lincoln said that his hobby was collecting stray cats. So you can imagine the dog chasing the cat, the boys chasing the dog, Mr. Lincoln chasing the boys. All of that went on in this room. Now the boys, if they weren't playing with their father, with their pets, they'd be playing checkers, chess, dominoes, jacks, or they'd be playing with the stereoscope on the table over there. That is the original stereoscope. It costed Mr. Lincoln between $20 and $25, which back then, that was a lot of money. So this right here, this is Mr. Lincoln's bedroom. Now, I can imagine Mr. Lincoln didn't get a lot of sleep in this room. He just got asked to run for president. The states were threatening to fall apart, and South Carolina had just seceded from the Union. So all of that weight was on Mr. Lincoln's shoulders. And it's actually said from neighbors that they would see candlelight lit in the corner of his bedroom at 1 o'clock or 2 o'clock in the morning. So if you guys look in the corner over there, that actually is the original desk that Mr. Lincoln sat at and might have even written his inaugural speech at. Well, Mrs. Lincoln actually picked this wallpaper out herself, and it is said that Mrs. Lincoln had a lot of migraine headaches, and hey, I can tell why. So keep in mind the size of that chamber pot, because as we're going through Mrs. Lincoln's room, you'll notice that she actually has something quite fancy, and this actually is the original commode that she used. So the room to the right, this was Robert's room, but as soon as Robert left going off to college, Willie and Tad came and shared this room. Now, I'm sure you guys noticed a lot of toys in there. Well, that's because Mr. Lincoln did not have that growing up. He was very poor, so he didn't have these toys. Just like in education, Mr. Lincoln had less than 1 year of education, but he sent his oldest son Robert off to college. So just like Mr. Lincoln taught himself how to read and write, Mrs. Lincoln actually taught herself how to cook in this kitchen, because growing up, she came from a wealthy family, so she didn't cook and she didn't know how. So she taught herself in this kitchen, and that actually is the original stove that she used as well. This is actually the only home in the neighborhood that stayed in the original spot, and the only home that we have not actually added on to. So yes, this right here, what you see, is the original.